Welcome back to High Frontier. This is part number 6 and possibly the last part. We're going on the race for glory. This is the Mars tutorial. So last we checked in, we are in year 24, and the Taikonauts, they auctioned the neutral beam Robonaut trying to build a hand, and they won it for 0. And now NASA is on its way to Mars to get a factory on that site. So NASA is right here at the Hohmann Crossing. They stopped last time, so they didn't have to make a burn. So they came from the Lagrange point here, and they stopped. And so now they're going to be going on to the road to Mars here. And this is another Lagrange point there. And they go up here, and they have to spin a burn. So they're going to go ahead and spin that burn. And that's going to cost just one step. And that reduces the mass down to 9.5. So they still have one step left. They can still make another burn, but they're not going to do that. This is a flyby, so they get a bonus burn. I'm sorry, the flyby was here, so they don't get a bonus burn. So they're going to go to LMO, and they're not going to go to the landing. They're just going to go right to here, and they either have to make a hazard roll to aero brake down to the site, or they can pay to not fail. And NASA has 5 aqua, and they're going to go ahead and they're going to pay 4 aqua to failure is not an option. Paying the programmers and making sure that everything's good to go. So with 4, they're able to go here and land on the site. So once they're on the site, they're going to go ahead and they're going to decommission the Robonaut and the refinery, because they had a Robonaut already at the outpost. They brought the refinery, so they're going to decommission both of those cards there, and they're going to build a factory on that site. And that is called the industrialized operation. We saw the ESA do that. And so now NASA has done that. It is a C site. So they're going to go ahead and they're going to build that C factory there. And and basically that takes down the rocket. Anything that was any fuel that was remaining, which was a half a step of fuel, is gone. And the rocket is no longer in operation. And the 2 cards here go back to the player's hand. The outpost is also gone because now it's been replaced by a factory. And the marker gets adjusted because there are now 2. There are now 2. So that's the marker up there. Show you. So now it's worth 5 points apiece instead of 8. So the factory is worth 5. There's also a free action, since there is a factory now in place and there is a crew in place. They're going to go ahead and they're going to build a colony, and building a colony is a free action. So on top of the factory goes a dome. Whoops, that's the green. On top of the NASA factory goes a dome. So they actually have now a colony. And the crew is decommissioned, basically back down to Leo. So now it's at Earth orbit. And you can consider this as the crew that went there is in the colony, and they're living there. And a new crew has come out, and now they've gone up to the low Earth orbit and are basically waiting for a rocket to take them somewhere. So the thruster as well. Let me see what happens to the thruster here. The adjusted the blue bead taken on the, yep, did that. Created the first space colony in the game. And the crew card goes back to LEO and decommissions the thruster to the hand as well. So the thruster has the hand now has 2 robonauts, a thruster, and a refinery. That's all now in the hand and ready to go again to get boosted up so that another rocket can be built. So that was a pretty good turn. One thing to mention here is that colonies can only be built where factories exist. It earns you victory points, protects against claim jumps, and returns your crew to LEO. So that's what a colony does. So it's very good to build colonies. All right. So the ESA actually has a factory there. They would like to get back out and rolling if they could. So they're going to have a couple of options to try to get the win. So one thing is to try to get to Mars and to get a colony up and running, or find a spectral type C card and then undertake an ET production operation. And that's basically turning the card over from white to black. So they decided to aim for the ET production operation, and they're going to try to get through these cards down here in the auction zone to try to find one of those. So what they did is they took they auctioned off this robonaut here. It's called the Cuck Mosquito Robonaut. And they took it and they basically got it for free. So now they have 3 cards in their hand. These are the 3. 2 robonauts and a refinery. The last time these guys went out, they came home, and so this all should have been moved because that rocket's no longer out there. Okay, so that is the end of the year 24. So we're going to go to year 25. And you know what that means? That means this goes here, and then the red circle goes off. So there's not much time left. It looks like we are going to continue through this for a little bit longer. It doesn't look like the game actually ends here yet, but it does end fairly soon. It looks like it ends at year 28. So this is year 25. So the Taikonauts are wondering whether or not they should continue even playing at this point because they're pretty much done. But research auctions and the ISRU Saboteur Refinery, anyway, this one right here, they go ahead and auction it, and nobody bids anything, so that person just wins for free. NASA, feeling very confident, uses an ET production operation to turn the solar pumped MHD Exiplex laser robonaut in her hand to the black side, placing it as the quantum cascade laser onto outpost slot number 1 on her playmat. So right here, this Robonaut here, this one right here, is going to get flipped over because it's a C Robonaut, and we have a factory C. Gets turned over and becomes this guy right here. So you can see the ISRU value is 0. What a great card that is. It went from a 2 to a 0. It went from a 5 mass down to a 3 mass. That's an awesome card. So that card is now ET produced and is now on the black side. So it's also in the outpost spot here because it was produced on Mars. So the outpost marker is back onto the site containing her factory only because the spectral type C matches the patent of the spectral type C. ET production is used to produce blackside cars and only using your faction's factories unless your faction can commit a felony or you negotiate. So the outpost is actually back in order to mark that this Robonaut is out there. So it's off the board, but let's just say that we know that the outpost is sitting out there, and we'll count that later on. Okay, cool. That's very good, and that's going to be really hard to beat, I would say. All right, so now we have we got the C Robonaut changed to the C side because there was a C factory, and we got ourselves a nice card there. So these are patents that are built in space are the black side. Patents built on Earth are the white ones. In the future games with a broader scope, black side cards are critical to really exploring the solar system because they are generally lighter with better capabilities, as we just saw. Okay, so the ESA is still looking for a Type C card. So they put the Robonaut up for auction because that's not a C card. They put the Robonaut up for auction and really needs funds more than she needs the patents. So she really is hoping somebody bids because she doesn't want the card itself. The Taikonauts are still trying to build their funds. So they just build one, a bid one. NASA's not interested. And, well, there's nothing here anyway. So the Taikonauts get it for one. And pays the ESA the one. One thing that they did notice, though, is that the next card on the auction could be a C card. So that's kind of interesting. It could be they could get it next turn. So we're basically at this point of the game where a dice roll can end it. This is what you do after there's no more red chits over here on the solar sunspot cycle. Actually, what you do is you roll the die, and if it comes up as a 1, then the game ends. So the game could also end if a 1 is rolled before a 1 is rolled. If a faction undertakes an ET production operation and then sells the resulting technology on the free market to meet the last of the 3 in-game triggers in this scenario. So the Taikonauts roll the first time for the game end, and they got a 3. So the game continues. All right. So the Taikonauts are going to go ahead and they're going to free market their refinery right here. And they're going to get 3 aqua for that. There we go. Up to 6. NASA wants to get the technology back to Earth to sell to basically get this game over with. Black side cards can be transported to Leo with a delivery operation, but without the fuel tanks that she needs to produce fuel at her factory on Mars. So doesn't have any fuel tanks and really needs to produce fuel at the factory. So the factory can be used to produce fuel tanks at the site, which enables rockets to refuel for further movement. So NASA uses a factory refuel operation and adds 7. Remember, with a factory, you get 7 aqua to the outpost stack. So there's a whole bunch of aqua there now on the outpost stack. That came from the factory. What was it called again? The factory refuel operation. All right, so 2 more turns, they'll be able to get that cargo back to Earth, and see if they can get this game over with. All right, so they also need a little bit of luck with those in-game dice rolls to make sure that a 1 doesn't come up. All right, so again, the black side cards can be transported to Leo with the delivery operation, but you need a whole bunch of fuel tanks in order to be able to do that. So the ESA is feeling pretty good because they've got themselves the claim and the factory. And what the ESA is going to do is going to put up the auction for this C card because they want to get that turned to a black side. So they go ahead and they put it up for 0. And NASA will go ahead and bid 1. Do they even have 1? I don't even see 1 up there. Wait, yeah, I don't even see 1 up there. I guess they had 1 at one point. I don't know, but they said they have 1. So they're going to go ahead and bid the 1, but go, and then the ESA says, okay, fine, I'll bid my 1 as well. And they win that auction and they take the card into their hand right over here. All right. The Taikonauts now roll the dice, see if the game's going to continue, and it does. They rolled a 4. So year 25 and now year 26. I forgot to move it last time. Now, remember, because it was we rolled a 1, and then now we rolled. Rolled a what was it? Rolled a 5, and now rolled a 1. No, never rolled a 1. Did not roll a 1. So that did not happen. They rolled a 3, and then they rolled a 4. Okay, so seeing it says, note, seeing the situation more clearly than the Taikonauts, NASA could have attempted to negotiate with the Taikonauts to get them to grab that spectral type C Robonaut that's so important to the ESA. But for the purpose of this tutorial, we've kept NASA quiet. And given that the Taikonaut player doesn't appear to have much sympathy for NASA, they probably wouldn't have done it anyway. All right. So the game hangs in the balance. NASA and the ESA are fighting for final advantage, and the winner might ultimately come down to the turn on which the game ends. Unfortunately for the Taikonauts, they're out of the running, but we'll continue on. They free market the neutral beam Robonaut that they have. That's this one. And they get 3 aqua for that. Still holding out hope to actually get a rocket and get it out there. Let's see what happens. NASA is ready to take the black-sided card back to Leo, having collected 7 fuel tanks at our outpost last turn. Now they use the delivery option. The delivery operation, the cost is fuel tanks equal to twice the number of zones the delivery must enter, including the start zone. So Mars and Earth, that's 2 zones. So 2 times 2 is equal to 4 fuel tanks. So, and there's also an extra fuel tank that's needed because the site is size 7 or greater. So since the site is size 7 or greater, you have to add another fuel tank. So that's actually 5 fuel tanks. And with 7, the fuel tank cost is fuel tanks equal to twice the number of zones the delivery must enter, excluding the starting zone. Okay, so only where it's going to go, and that's Earth. So Earth is only that's 1 zone away. So 1 times 2 is 2, plus the site is size 7 or greater. So that's 3 tanks. So it only needs 3 tanks, and with 7 tanks on the outpost stack, it's very easy just for them to pay the 3 and be able to transport this from the outpost stack okay. I should only have 7 there, but I actually have 7 minus 3. I should only have 4 there now, but I actually have 5. So that's where one of the aqua went. It just went from there to there. Okay, cool. Yep. So now it's in Leo, and the card goes from the outpost stack to Leo, and the final 4 remain at the outpost. It says, here's a tip. If you decommission a black side card to bring it back to your hand, you lose the black-sided patent, since all the cards in your hand must be on their white side. So you really need to keep that thing in space. It's also legal to fly a black side card back to Leo as part of a rocket, but that's much more difficult to do. We will leave you to discover when that might be better tactical play on your own. Here's another tip. Have a black side card plan. If you create 1 or 2 factories and you know which black side cards you will produce there, and you plan accordingly, you can crush your opponents by very rapidly leapfrogging from one site with a factory to another site to build the next factory, especially if your black side cards are a refinery and a Robonaut. All right, good to know. All right, so the ESA uses an ET production operation to flip the Robonaut that they have in their hand. That's a C card. They flip it over to the black side and they put it on an outpost, just like NASA did last time. And they can do that because they have a C factory out there. And now they have an outpost there. So that's what the ESA does. And they've got a nanobot Robonaut. It's probably too late, but they did it. So NASA now rolls the die and they roll a 6. So the game continues. So year number 28, and this is actually the last year. So the Taikonauts sells the Rock Splitter Robonaut, the last card they have in their hand, and they sell that for 3 aqua. So they're going to finish the game with a ton of currency, a ton of money, but very little points. NASA now is going to free market their black card. So they're going to free market their black card, and black-sided patents are much more valuable. The position of the bead on the exploitation track determines the selling price. So that person earns 5 points, or 5 aqua for selling that card. And the card is placed back onto the bottom of the Robonaut patent deck, white side up. This actually meets the final game ending condition for the scenario. The game's going to end at the end of this turn. So the black side card down here gets turned over to the white side and placed at the bottom. The ESA sells their Robonaut for 3, knowing that it's not going to make really any difference. So this one gets sold for 3 aqua. And believe it or not, I actually got to take out another aqua out of the bag here because everyone stored up a whole bunch of aqua at the end of this game. So there we go. Now we've got 3 aqua over there for the ESA. So here's the game is done. So now we're going to go ahead and determine the score. So each disc, cube, and dome is worth 1 VP. So each disc, cube, and dome. So as you can see, NASA's got 1 disc, 1 cube, 1 dome. So that would be 3 points. The ESA has a disc and a dome. I'm sorry, a disc and a cube. So that's 2 points. And Taikonauts have a disc. So that's 1 point. Glory Chits are worth 2 VP. There's only one team that has one, and that is the Taikonauts, and they've got 1 for 2 points. So now they're in a tie for the lead with NASA at 3 VP apiece. The stock price for the factories, as we saw, is 5, way up there. So each of the people who have a factory on that C site get 5 points. So NASA's at 8, and the ESA is at 7. The ESA also earns a point for being the first to build a factory on Mars in year 23. So that increases it from 2 to 2 plus 5 plus 1 is equal to 8. And NASA gets a point for being the first to land a rocket on Mars, and a point for a free market on an ET product. Okay, so they have a point for the claim, a point for the factory, a point for the colony, 5 points for the factory stock price. They were first to Mars for another point, that's 9. And then they were first to the free market on an ET produce, so that's 10 points. The Taikonauts have a claim and a glory chit for 2 and a claim for 1. So that's 3 points total. The ESA has a claim, a factory, the factory stock price, and the first to build a factory. And that's 8 points. So in the end, the white team, NASA, won 10 to 8 to 3. And that, folks, is the end of the Race for Glory, the Mars tutorial. All right. I hope you enjoyed that. We learned a whole bunch along the way, and it was very interesting, I thought, to see how this game played out. I cannot wait to start doing more with this game because there are so many things that we're going to be able to do. It's going to be crazy. And I'm not sure why I had that ticker running across the screen the whole entire time. But anyway, I do hope that you enjoyed this. I don't know what we're going to do next, but I think we're going to stay here on the Race for Glory because there is a mode where there are people stranded somewhere and you got to go rescue them. So I'm thinking that we probably want to do that. Everything else is a little bit is more on this map with using these rules, and this specific thing is really for more than it's a cooperative kind of thing. Although so is the Save the People. They're really kind of cooperative, and some actually aren't cooperative, but you really do need multiple players. So it's not so much for solo, but it seemed like that probably I could do that one and save some people from their disaster that occurs. Plus, I also believe that it's going to be somewhere in the Jupiter zone. So I'm going to take these cards off here for a second because Jupiter is actually right out there. And in that zone somewhere, there's quite a few asteroids. So they could be at any one of those sites. And I'm going to pick one at random. I think that's the one I'm going to do next. Anyway, we're going to wrap this one up. And the next video will probably be out. Not exactly sure, but it's not going to be today. But it probably will come out later on this week. Thanks for watching.